Yo, what's good everybody, this is Rocket here, welcome back to a brand new video. In this video I'm going to teach you how to create your very own clean POV animations from CS2 demo files. This video is the third in a series of CS2 animation tutorials. In the first tutorial we covered how to make and record cinematics in-game using HLAE, as well as how to make map cinematics using Source Filmmaker. In the second video in the series we covered how to import maps, characters, weapons and animations into Blender to make your very own custom 3D animations. And in this video we're going to cover how to export clean POV animations from CS2 demo files. So for example, if you weren't recording while playing, or you want a version without the HUD in it, or in my case I want to make an edit from a demo file that isn't even my own game. So I got a demo from HLTV, which if you don't know what that is already, then it's a website that has all the scores, stats and analysis of pro CS2 matches and makes the demo files for the games available to download. So as you can see, here is HLTV. So if I click on something here, you'll see you'll be able to download the demo just by clicking this button here. The demo that I'm going to be using is actually from the show matches section, and I grabbed the demo from this Team Australia versus Team UK match on Dust 2. If you guys want to use your own demos, then you can navigate here to your games, then to CS2 personal game data, and you'll have your premier matches, competitive matches, ranked competitive matches, and in the bottom left corner here you'll see the option to download your demos. I haven't played a game of CSGO in quite a while. See, this game was on the 5th of November, so my demos have expired, but you should be able to download them there. Otherwise you can just use the normal watch tab inside of CSGO itself. So once you downloaded your demo, whether it's from HLTV or the Steam game activity, you're going to want to open it up to find this .dem file, which is going to be your CSGO demo. Some of the HLTV demos will come with a readme text file, so if you just open that it will tell you which version of CS2 you need to use. If you need to change the version of CS2, just right click on CS2 in your Steam library, go over to betas, and then here select the version of CS2 that the demo requires. Mine doesn't have a readme, so I'm just going to stay on none. And then to add the demo into your game file so we can watch it in game, all you need to do is click where it says installed files, click on browse, and it will open up a folder that looks like this. Then all you're going to want to do is go into game, CSGO, and drag your demo into here. So you'll see I've got Furia versus MIBR on train, new demo, test demo, these are the ones that I recorded myself. And down the bottom here is my Australia versus UK Dust 2 demo file, which I dragged in earlier from the RAR file that I downloaded from HLTV. So once you've got the demo file successfully in the correct location in your game files, we're going to need to find a way to turn that demo file into something that we can actually use for our CS2 montages and edits. So for that we're going to use Source 2 Filmmaker again, just like we did in the first video. So right click on CS2, go into properties, and in the DLC tab make sure that you have a check mark next to the Counter-Strike 2 workshop tools. It is a 600 megabyte update, so I'm just going to wait for that update to finish, and then all I'm going to do is click on CS2 and click play, and it's now going to give us the option to choose which version we'd like to launch. So I'm going to go CS2 workshop tools and click on play, and it's going to open a window that looks like this, the workshop tools. If you haven't created an add-on, then create a new add-on and call it whatever you want to call it. I already have one from the previous tutorial, so I'm just going to use that. And once you've done that, click on launch tools, and here you'll start to see a little windowed version of Counter-Strike 2 opening. So let's just drag that out the way there. As you can see, that's CS2 launched like normal, just in a small window. And here in the asset browser you'll see this icon for Source Filmmaker, so go ahead and click on that. If you can't see this, then come up to tools, and then Source Filmmaker there. So I'm just going to click on that, and in here we're just going to create a new file. So I'm going to call mine tutorial example, set the frame rate to 60 FPS, and I'm going to hit create. So now we've created a project inside of Source Filmmaker. I'm going to go ahead and make a wild guess that you want to make a CS2 montage or edit to post here on YouTube. And the biggest problem I find when I want to create a montage or edit is finding great music that won't get me a copyright strike. But luckily that is no longer a problem thanks to this video's sponsor, Licked. Licked is the perfect tool to enhance your YouTube videos for adding popular music tracks. Boasting a massive collection of over 1.3 million popular songs, Licked offers an extensive range for any type of content you want to create. Now you can legally obtain licenses and download music from some of the world's most renowned artists. As content creators on YouTube, we understand the platform's algorithm favors extended watch time, and what better way to keep your audience's attention than with some fantastic, recognizable music, just like the track you're listening to now. Plenty of other massive creators YouTubers like Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, and the Sidemen are already boosting their engagement using Licked. If you don't license your music legally, you're taking a gamble with YouTube's content ID system, and believe me, you don't want to risk having your video flagged. This could result in anything from demonetization and restricted exposure to regional blocks or even a copyright strike against your channel. However, with Licked, these concerns are a thing of the past. So why wait any longer? It's time to take your content to the next level. Click the link at the top of the video description where Licked is offering an exclusive 50% discount off your first mainstream track purchase, along with free 14-day access to their extensive stock music collection. That's right, a 50% discount and free access for 14 days. So grab this opportunity and check out Licked with the link at the top of the video description and elevate your content today. So now we've got our Source 2 Filmmaker project ready to go. The next step is going to be recording our demo from the perspective that we want it and importing it into Source Filmmaker. So let's go back to CS2 and then you're going to press the key that opens your console. So if you haven't found that, make sure you go into the settings under game, make sure Launcher Developer Console is on. It should be by default if you have launched it through the workshop tools. And then under keyboard and mouse, check what your toggle console key is. So mine is the home key. So what I'm going to do is press home on my keyboard and it's going to open up this virtual console. And this works just the same as the normal CS2 console. So the command I'm going to type in is play demo. You'll see it autocorrects it there. Press space, and here are the options of the demos that I've got in my game files. So Team Australia versus Team UK on Dust 2 is the one that I want for this tutorial, so I'm going to press enter on that. And you may see a few errors here, like failing to load certain images and whatnot, but for the most part that should be completely fine. And here you go, you can see the demo is now playing inside of my CS2 window. So just like usual, you can click to go through players and see all their different perspectives, but what I'm going to do is come out of that and enable the demo UI. So the command for that is demo UI, all one word, press enter. And then back in CS2, you'll see I now have this controller down here where I can play, pause, skip rounds, change the playback speed, that sort of thing. But just before we go any further, I do want to give a big shout out to Much Charmander. I did watch his video on using CS2 demos with Source Filmmaker, so I don't want to take any credit for discovering this. However, what we're going to do in this video is slightly different to what he did, but I will leave a link to his video down in the description, so I highly encourage you to go check that out. I've already covered making map cinematics in my first video in this series. Just my video didn't have any players in the map at the time, so if that's something you want to do, then I highly recommend watching the second half of my first video, which is where I showed you how to do that inside of Source Filmmaker. I'll put an image of the thumbnail of that video on the screen, as well as a link in the description. So it's my cinematics tutorial, which explains HLAE in the first half, which isn't relevant for this, but in the second half I explain a bit more about Source Filmmaker, as well as how to make cam paths. And then once you're familiar with that, go ahead and watch Much Charmander's video to see how to add the players from the demo into the map. Now that's only if you want third-person cinematics, so if you want, the players running around and you want to fly the camera around them to create some cinematic shots. In this video, we're just going to do the first-person POV with the focus on exporting it in a way that would be used for CS2 edits or montages. If you would like a full video on creating the third-person cinematics, then do let me know, as I have a few other tips and tricks that I can show you to make the process a little bit easier. Okay, so now in CS2, let's find the part of the video that we want to record. So I'm just going to skip into the first round and cycle through some of these players. So I think I'm going to want to take a clip from this round. So I'm just going to watch this round through once, just to make sure that all the assets and textures are loaded and that the shaders are compiled, because I don't want there to be any lag whilst we're recording it. So as you can see, I've pretty much watched the whole round through. So let's just go back to the start, and I think I'm going to start recording about here. So what I'm going to do now is, if we close out of this virtual console, we don't need that anymore. What you're going to want to do is come back into Source Filmmaker and press the record button here. Now it's going to give you these options. So the first is to record from a demo file directly. So what we've done instead is open the demo in CS2 already, put it on the round that we want, and got it all prepped like that. Whereas if you chose a demo file in here and hit record, it would load that demo into CS2 and just start recording straight away, meaning you're going to probably end up recording a lot of stuff that you don't actually need. So I find it much easier to just load the demo in CS first. Next are these 5 options here. So the camera is going to be the first person camera of whoever you're spectating when you're recording. If you want to do third person, then remove the camera and then we will add it back later inside of Source Filmmaker. And it's important, if you're going to do third person, that you are not in a POV inside the demo when you're recording. You're going to want to be in the third person camera flying around. But for this video, we do want to have the first person camera, so we're going to leave that checked. But what we are going to uncheck is the lights box here. Now, the reason for that, I imagine it's a bug at the moment, but if you leave that checked, essentially what it's going to do is almost remove all the lighting from the game, because when it adds the map into Source Filmmaker, it already comes with all of its lights and global illumination and that sort of thing. When you import the lights from the demo as well, you end up getting twice the brightness and everything, and it just makes the whole map look washed out. Again, I'm not sure if that's intentional or if that is even a correct explanation for what's happening, but that's what I've noticed, so I do not check lights. And then the final options are set shot map from game. So instead of loading the map in beforehand, which you could do, I'm just going to grab it directly from the game. I find this is a bit easier, you know, if you're using a workshop map or something like that. If you don't want to load the map from the game, then you can uncheck this and instead come over to the viewport, right click, hit set session map, and then choose the map from here. But we are going to leave this checked. And then skip entities more than 120 units outside camera view. You don't need to check that. We don't want to check that either. This is just essentially going to cull any entities that aren't in the camera's view. I guess if you have a bad computer or something like that, then maybe you'll want to enable this, but I find that it causes more bugs than it does good, so we're going to leave those disabled. If you guys would like another video on optimizing Source Filmmaker for rendering and things like that, if you have a slow PC or something like that, then do let me know and I can make that. So now we know all those settings do. Let's go ahead and hit record. So you can see it says recording up here, and I'm going to hit play in CS and you'll hear it count down, and it started recording now. So essentially it's going to record whatever we see on screen. So if I start switching between players, then it will capture that. So I just want this one person's POV, and I imagine if you're going to do this, you'll want to go back and do it in 2 or 3 different rounds and record everyone's POV and render it out individually. So when you come to edit it, it's a bit easier than, you know, jumping around, because you may not be quite sure what you want to see and what you don't want to see whilst you're recording it. And also, as you jump around, certain models become visible and invisible, and you'll have to fix it later on, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute, because we will have an issue with the gloves. So there we go. I think that's pretty much done. So I'm going to press stop recording in Source Filmmaker and just pause CS and minimize it, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. Okay, so as you can see inside of Source Filmmaker, let's just make this full screen. You'll see we've got our demo file. So if I play through it, you'll see we've got the demo from the perspective of whoever we were watching at the time, running around just like we recorded it. And what we can do is if we change our camera from the one we recorded to our work camera just by clicking this button here, you can then hold down right click on your mouse and move the camera around and use WASD to fly around just like you would inside of CS, and you'll see if we play this that it is just the demo, but now we've got it inside of our 3D software so we can manipulate it and do whatever we please. Now if you recorded it in third person, you wouldn't have this camera that's following the main character around. As you can see here, there's no body for the character that we recorded the POV of, and you can see those floating gloves that I mentioned a minute ago, but I'll show you how to fix those. If you left the camera unchecked and were flying around in third person whilst recording, then you would have a full character there just like these, and you could then add your camera, as I demonstrated in my first cinematics tutorial, to fly around and, you know, record cinematics that way. But for this video, we're going to focus on the POV shots. So let's go back to our normal camera. I'm actually going to go back in time to that last shot here. So this is actually quite a good example. You can see we've got this motion blur, which is a bit weird. When you pause, it does all this kind of stuff. If you want to have this on when you render out, then fair enough, I can show you how to turn that on later. But for the moment, it's going to make it much easier if we disable it. So to do that, right click on the viewport, render settings, disable depth of field, disable motion blur. You can leave ambient occlusion and subpixel jitter anti-aliasing on if you want to, but I'm just going to hit OK, and then this is going to make it much easier for us when we're working with our clip. Another thing I recommend you do is if you right click and go to draw map objects, just tick particles as well. I haven't really noticed a difference when enabling it versus disabling it, but I'm not sure why they're hidden to start with, so I see no reason not to enable it, but your mileage may vary with that one. If you see any issues, then try disabling it, enabling it, and seeing if that makes a difference. So the first issue we have obviously is this extra pair of hands, as you can see. So we've currently got 2 pairs of hands for our character. So if you have this issue, then I'll show you how to fix it. So what we're going to want to do is make sure you're not in the element viewer, but instead in the animation set editor. Right click, hit create animation set for existing elements, and we're going to look inside of the models section, and we're going to look for gloves. So we've got gloves broken fang, gloves slick, and we're just going to click through them, and you'll see they'll highlight when we select the ones ones in this menu. So that's that one. This is this one. So we're going to select that, press OK. And now we'll have these animation controls for those gloves. And simply we can just hide them like that and they'll be gone. Alternatively, what you can do is just right click and then just do delete animation sets. I'm not sure if that removes the model itself. I don't believe it does. They'll just be put wherever the original location of them was, I believe. So there may be a pair of floating gloves somewhere in the map. So that's why I just hide them. But if for whatever reason hiding them is still making them appear in your render, just not in the viewport, then go ahead and delete the animation set for those. The next issue we have is if we go into the camera, you'll see the floating gloves are now gone. If we go into the camera, this is a good example. If you look at the bottom right corner, you'll see the weapon is clipping through the camera. So it's like bits of it's going invisible like that, and that looks very ugly. So what we can do is if we right click again over here and do create animation set for existing elements, select the camera and press OK. And now if we expand this down, you'll see we have the option for field of view and Z near. So Z near is going to be how close something has to be to the camera before it starts clipping, aka this. And the field of view is essentially how wide we can see. So I'll show you what they look like. So if we drag these settings, you'll see they don't actually do anything at the moment. And the reason for that is because there's no keyframe for them. So what we're going to do is with our shot selected, come over to the graph editor to enable that. You can zoom in with the middle mouse wheel and drag along the bottom to pan around the timeline. Doesn't matter where in our clip we do this. So I just found a good example here to show you what the camera would look like where we've got some clipping. So what we can do is press M on our keyboard with whichever one we want to change selected. So let's start off with field of view, and we're going to press M whilst hovering over the timeline to add a keyframe, and now it will let us change the FOV, so you can see what it does, and this will apply to the entire clip. You can obviously animate the FOV over time by adding multiple keyframes, but I don't see why you'd want to do that. So you can see the difference the FOV makes. So to fix the clipping issue, we can just pull the FOV in until it's no longer a problem, something like that, because for me the FOV seems too wide for CS anyway. When it's imported into Source Filmmaker, I'm not sure if it's because of my view model inside CS2 or not, but it does seem a bit too wide. So I'm going to just pull that in a little bit. Or alternatively, what you can do, or as well as if you want to, if I zoom out so you can see where it's clipping, if we go to the Z near option and press M to add a keyframe, alternatively you can click this button here and then decrease the Z near value, you'll see that it will hide things as they get closer to the camera. So if we just decrease that to the point, don't go so far because things in the distance will start disappearing. Like if you look at these windows and that, if you draw this backwards, they start to disappear. So just go as far as you need such that the view model is no longer clipping, and that could fix that as well. But I'm going to do a combination of both, so I'm actually going to pull the FOV in a little bit as well to something like that, and I think that works for me. While we're messing around with the camera settings, let's go back to the element viewer and expand the settings option here, and inside of render settings let's expand that as well and just change these settings. So I want to render mine at 2560 by 1440. You could render yours at 1080p, 720p, 4K, whatever you want. The frame rate is 60. I'm not sure if you change this now whether there will be any issues with this timing of the video, whether there is some kind of dynamic link between the demo file and Source Filmmaker such that it would automatically add or remove keyframes when you change the frame rate, or whether 60 is the maximum we can go to, or whether, say I doubled this, the clip would get twice as fast. That's something for you to experiment with if you want. Again, I can make another video on how to get high FPS, so I'm talking like 300 FPS clips for doing time remapping and things like that with. But for this video I'm trying to keep it simple and beginner friendly, so there we go. Let's leave that at what we set it at originally. Again, you can change these when it actually comes to rendering out, but I like to make sure that it's set in here for when we export the camera later. But yeah, and the last thing to do is go back to the clip editor, and then we'll just pick the part that we want to export. So for the tutorial I'm just going to do like a 5-second clip because that'll be easier to demonstrate. You may want to export, I don't know, 30 seconds at a time. So I want my clip to end sort of, let's say here. So that's a 8-second clip. So I'm just going to drag my shot down to the playhead just like so, and then reduce my clip accordingly, and this will be the final animation that I render out, as you can see, just like that. So now if you wanted to, you could start editing some of the animations, adding other models, you know, changing the skybox, doing whatever you want inside of Source Filmmaker. But I find that Source Filmmaker limits you kind of creatively with the flexibility that you have, and that would better suit to something like Blender. So if you'd like to see another video in the future where I show you how to export the demo from Source Filmmaker into another 3D software like Blender or maybe Unreal Engine, which will give you a lot more flexibility of what you can do creatively, then do let me know in the comments section, and I'll be sure to make it. But for now, let's just render it directly from Source Filmmaker. So let's come up to File, Export Movie, and Save. And here you'll see we have the options to export our movie. So I'm going to just use an image sequence. If you want to use a movie, you can save it as a video file. So MP4, H.264, choose your bitrate, whether you want the audio or not, what resolution. But for me, I'm going to just use an image sequence because I like to edit with images, but it's completely up to you. I'm just going to render it as JPEGs for the moment because I'm not worried about quality. If you are going to use an image sequence, then please do use PNG, as they use lossless compression, unlike JPEG, which will reduce the file size but also reduce the quality in an unrecoverable way. But for the tutorial, I'm going to use JPEG because I don't want to take up a ton of space on my hard drive. A separate WAV file is going to be exporting your audio just as an audio clip, which you can add later on in editing. I'm going to change my resolution to 2560 by 1440 as I said earlier, so we'll just do custom, there you go. And in more options, I'm actually going to leave depth of field and motion blur off as we turned them off earlier, but if you want to enable them now, then you can go ahead and do that, but I like to add my motion blur and things like that in editing. If you'd like to see some other videos in the future, maybe where I explain the render settings in more detail, as well as how to export separate world, view model, and character layers, as well as maybe other render passes like a depth buffer and things like that, then do let me know in the comments section and I can make that as well. Thinking about turning this into like a proper tutorial series, kind of like a course, if that would be something that people are interested in, going from the start all the way to the end of making a whole CS2 edit. So do let me know your thoughts on that if you're interested. And other than that, let's choose where we want to save it. So I'm just going to save it in this render file and we'll just call it a tutorial and hit save. And now I'm going to export this movie. So you'll see it's going to render each frame. You'll get a little bar at the bottom here that shows the progress. This is going to be completely dependent on the speed of your computer. So I have a pretty decent computer, so it will only take me a minute or two. It also depends on the length of the clip, whether you used motion blur or not, what other post-processing effects you used, the resolution you used, things like that. Again, I can make a video on stuff like that if you're interested, and I'll be back with you as soon as this is finished rendering. Okay, so as you can see, my render has finished. So I've got this entire folder full of all the images for my recording. So if I just skip through these, you can see I've got an image for every single frame of the part of the demo that I chose. If you chose to just record it as a movie video file, then you'll just have a single video, and then I also have this audio clip here, which has obviously the audio from the clip as well. Basically, every editing software I've ever used allows you to import image sequences, so you may have to look up a tutorial for your specific software. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys did enjoy, then please slap a like on it, as well as leave any comments with any future videos that you'd like to see on the channel. Subscribe for more videos just like this one. Check out the previous two parts in this series as well. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon, and big shout out to Licked for sponsoring this video. And other than that, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.